There is something most people never realize. They spend their lives trying to fix their problems without ever questioning where those problems come from. They blame circumstances. They blame other people. They blame bad luck. But what if most of your problems are not created by the world, but by your interpretation of it? The stress you feel, the frustration that lingers, the constant overthinking, the anxiety about things that have not even happened yet, these are not always caused by reality itself. They are created by how you process reality. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius understood this deeply. He did not try to control the world around him. He focused on controlling his perception of it. Because he knew something powerful. You may not control what happens to you, but you always control how you respond, and that response shapes your experience. This is why two people can face the same situation and react completely differently. One becomes overwhelmed, the other remains calm. One sees a problem, the other sees an opportunity. The difference is not the situation, it is the mind. If your mind is weak, everything feels harder. If your mind is strong, everything becomes manageable. This is where Stoicism begins, not by changing the world, but by rebuilding how you think about it. Because when you rebuild your mind, you change how you experience everything. And when your experience changes, your life begins to change. If you want more Stoic wisdom that strengthens your mindset daily, subscribe to the channel. Because everything begins with how you think. 1. Control what you can, ignore what you cannot. There is a simple idea that can remove a large percentage of your stress. But most people ignore it because it requires acceptance, and acceptance is difficult. The idea is this: you cannot control everything. You cannot control how people behave. You cannot control what happens around you. You cannot control every outcome. And yet, most people spend their energy trying to do exactly that. They worry about things they cannot change. They get frustrated by things outside their control. They become emotionally drained by situations they have no power over. And this creates suffering, unnecessary suffering. The teacher Epictetus built his entire philosophy around this principle. Some things are within your control, and some things are not. Your thoughts are within your control. Your actions are within your control. Your responses are within your control. Everything else is external. When you truly understand this, something shifts. You stop fighting reality. You stop resisting what you cannot change. You stop wasting energy, and instead, your focus becomes clear. You begin to invest your energy where it matters. On your behavior, on your mindset, on your discipline. And this creates a sense of calm, not because life becomes easier, but because you are no longer creating unnecessary resistance. A strong person does not try to control everything. They control themselves. Because once you control your mind, you control your actions. And once you control your actions, you begin to shape your life. Each morning, when you remind yourself to focus only on what you can control, you reduce stress instantly. You simplify your thinking. You create clarity. And that clarity allows you to act effectively, because clarity begins when you focus on what is truly yours to control. 2. Your thoughts shape your reality. There is something happening in your mind right now, a constant stream of thoughts, interpreting everything you see, everything you hear, everything you experience. But here is the truth. Most people never question. Not every thought is true. Some thoughts are exaggerated, some are influenced by fear, some are based on past experiences that no longer apply, And yet, most people believe them automatically. The philosopher Seneca warned that we suffer more in imagination than in reality. We create scenarios in our minds that have not happened. We assume outcomes that may never occur. We amplify small problems into large ones, and in doing so we create stress. But when you become aware of your thoughts, something changes. You begin to observe them instead of reacting to them. You begin to question them instead of believing them. You begin to guide them instead of following them. And that changes everything, because your thoughts shape your perception, and your perception shapes your experience. If you think something is unbearable, it will feel unbearable. If you think something is manageable, it becomes manageable. This is not about ignoring reality. It is about seeing it clearly, without distortion, without exaggeration. A strong person does not believe every thought. They examine it, they challenge it, they refine it, because they understand that the quality of their thinking determines the quality of their life. Each morning, when you remind yourself to question your thoughts, you create space between stimulus and response, and in that space you gain control, because your thoughts shape everything you experience. 3. Discomfort is the path to growth. There is a quiet instinct that controls most people, an instinct to avoid what feels difficult, to move away from effort, to choose what is comfortable. It feels natural, it feels safe, it feels right. But that instinct is also the reason most people remain stuck. Because comfort does not build strength, it maintains what already exists. It keeps you where you are, and over time, staying where you are becomes falling behind. The Stoics understood something most people resist. Discomfort is not the enemy, it is the path. The teacher Epictetus believed that difficulty reveals character. Not comfort, not ease, but resistance. Because when things are easy, anyone can perform, anyone can stay calm, anyone can appear strong. But when things become difficult, that is when your true character is revealed. That is when your discipline is tested. That is when your mindset matters most. Most people never reach this point, because they avoid it. They feel resistance and step back. They feel discomfort and choose ease. And each time they do, they reinforce a habit of avoidance, a habit of staying the same. But a strong person does something different. They move toward discomfort, not blindly, not recklessly, but intentionally, because they understand that discomfort carries information. It shows you where your limits are. It shows you where growth is possible. It shows you where improvement is needed. And when you begin to see discomfort this way, something changes. It no longer feels like something to avoid. It becomes something to use. At first, this is not easy. Your mind will resist. It will look for excuses. It will try to pull you back into comfort. Because comfort is familiar. And the mind prefers familiarity, even when it is limiting. But if you stay with the discomfort, if you move through it instead of away from it, something powerful happens. You adapt. What once felt difficult becomes manageable. What once felt uncomfortable becomes normal. And once it becomes normal, it no longer controls you. This is how resilience is built, not through one big challenge, but through repeated exposure to difficulty. Each time you choose what is hard, you expand your capacity. Each time you avoid it, you shrink it. This is the trade, and it is always present. A mentally strong person accepts this trade. They understand that growth requires effort, that progress requires resistance, that change requires discomfort, and because they understand it, they stop running from it. They begin to embrace it. Each morning when you remind yourself to choose what is difficult, you shift your mindset. You stop asking how to avoid effort, and start asking how to use it. You begin to see challenges differently, not as obstacles, but as opportunities, opportunities to improve, to strengthen, to become better than you were yesterday. And over time, this mindset compounds. It changes how you respond to difficulty. It changes how you approach problems. It changes how you see yourself. Because now you are no longer someone who avoids challenge. You are someone who faces it. And that identity is powerful. Because identity drives behavior, and behavior creates results. A strong person does not wait for life to become easy, they become stronger. And as they become stronger, life becomes more manageable. Not because challenges disappear, but because they are no longer overwhelmed by them. 4. Stop wasting time. There is something you are losing right now, and you cannot get it back. Not tomorrow, not next week, not later. It is your time. And the most dangerous part is this. You often do not notice when you are wasting it, because it does not feel like loss. It feels like comfort. It feels like rest. It feels like harmless distraction, scrolling, delaying, waiting for the right moment. But these small moments add up. And over time, they create something far more serious. A life that feels unfulfilled, not because you lacked potential, but because you never used your time intentionally. The philosopher Seneca wrote that it is not that we have a short time to live, but that we waste much of it. And this truth is difficult to accept, because it forces you to confront your habits, how you spend your hours, how you use your attention, how you prioritize what matters. Most people believe they will start later, when they feel ready, when life becomes easier, when the conditions are right. But those conditions rarely come, and even when they do, they pass quickly. A strong person understands something different. There is no perfect time, there is only now. And how you use this moment determines everything that follows. Each minute you spend intentionally moves you forward. Each minute you waste keeps you where you are. This is the trade, and it is always happening. A mentally strong person becomes aware of this. They do not treat time casually. They treat it as something valuable, something limited, something that must be used with purpose. This does not mean they never rest. It means they rest intentionally. They choose when to pause. They choose when to act, because even rest has a purpose: recovery, clarity, renewal. But unconscious distraction has no purpose. It drains your focus. It weakens your discipline. It steals your momentum. Each morning, when you remind yourself that time is limited, something shifts. You become more aware, more intentional, more focused. You stop delaying what matters. You stop waiting for perfect conditions. You begin to act, because now you understand the cost of inaction, the cost of waiting, the cost of wasted time. And that understanding creates urgency, not panic, but clarity, a clear sense that your time matters, that your actions matter, that your decisions matter. A strong person does not rush through life, but they do not drift either. They move with intention. They use their time wisely. They focus on what matters. And over time, this creates results, real results, because now their effort is consistent, their direction is clear, and their time is being used effectively. If this message is making you more aware of how you spend your time, if it is pushing you to act instead of delay, subscribe to the channel, because your future is built by how you use your present. 5. Discipline over motivation. There is a belief that holds most people back, a belief that you need to feel motivated before you act, that you need the right mood, the right energy, the right mindset, and when those feelings are not there, you wait, you delay, you tell yourself you will start when you feel ready. But here is the truth. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes. It is influenced by mood, by environment, by how you feel in the moment. And because of that, it cannot be trusted. The Stoics understood this long ago. They did not rely on how they felt. They relied on what they did, consistently, repeatedly, regardless of emotion. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius reminded himself to do what must be done, even when he did not feel like it, because he understood something powerful. Action should not depend on feeling. It should depend on principle. A strong person acts based on what needs to be done, not based on how they feel about it. This is where discipline begins, not in moments of excitement, but in moments of resistance, when you do not feel like starting, when you want to delay, when comfort is calling you back, and you act anyway. That is discipline. Each time you act despite resistance, you strengthen your mind. You reduce hesitation, you build momentum, and over time that momentum becomes consistency. Because now you are no longer waiting for motivation. You are creating progress through action. Most people get this backwards. They believe motivation creates action, but in reality, action creates motivation. When you begin, even when you do not feel ready, something changes. The resistance weakens, the task becomes manageable, the momentum builds, and suddenly what felt difficult becomes easier. This is why starting is so important. Not perfectly, not completely, but simply beginning. A strong person understands this. They lower the barrier to action. They do not wait for perfect conditions. They start small, and once they start, they continue. Because the hardest part is always the beginning. Each morning, when you remind yourself that discipline matters more than motivation, you shift your mindset. You stop asking how you feel and start asking what needs to be done. And that question creates clarity, it removes excuses, it creates direction. A mentally strong person builds routines, habits that remove the need for constant decision-making, because decisions require energy, and energy is limited. But habits are automatic. They reduce resistance. They make action easier, and over time, they create consistency. This is how discipline becomes part of your identity, not something you struggle with, but something you live by. Each action reinforces it, each repetition strengthens it, until it becomes natural, until it becomes who you are, a person who acts, a person who follows through, a person who does what needs to be done. And that identity is powerful, because once you see yourself this way, your behavior aligns with it. You begin to act differently. You begin to think differently. You begin to expect more from yourself, and over time your results reflect it. A strong person does not wait to feel ready. They act, and through action they become ready. They build confidence, not through thinking, but through doing. Each completed action proves something, that you can follow through, that you can improve, that you can move forward. And that proof builds belief, belief in yourself, belief in your ability, belief in your direction. This is how confidence is built. Not through words, but through action. Each morning when you choose discipline over motivation, you take control. You stop being controlled by how you feel. You start being guided by what matters. And that shift changes everything. Because now your progress is no longer dependent on emotion. It is dependent on effort. And effort is within your control. Because discipline is what separates intention from results. 6. Take full responsibility. There is a moment in life that separates those who stay stuck from those who transform completely. It is not a moment of opportunity. It is not a moment of luck. It is a moment of realization, a moment where you stop looking outward and start looking inward, a moment where you stop blaming and start taking responsibility. Not partial responsibility, not selective responsibility, but full responsibility. This is not easy, because responsibility is heavy. It forces you to confront uncomfortable truths, that your current situation is shaped by your actions, your habits, your decisions, and while that truth can feel harsh, it is also powerful, because the moment you take responsibility, you take back control. Most people avoid this. They blame circumstances, they blame other people, they blame timing, because blame feels easier. It protects the ego, it removes pressure, it allows you to stay the same. But it also keeps you powerless. Because when the cause of your problems is outside of you, the solution is also outside of you, and that means you are waiting. Waiting for things to change, waiting for people to act differently, waiting for life to become easier. But that waiting leads nowhere. A strong person does something different. They accept responsibility, even when it is uncomfortable, even when it is difficult, because they understand something powerful. Responsibility creates control. The teacher Epictetus taught that freedom comes from focusing only on what is within your control, your thoughts, your actions, your responses. Everything else is secondary. When you take responsibility, your focus shifts. You stop asking, "Why is this happening to me?" and start asking, "What can I do about it?" That question changes everything. Because it creates movement, it creates direction, it creates action. Instead of staying stuck in frustration, you begin to move forward. You begin to improve. You begin to grow. A mentally strong person does not deny reality. They face it, they accept it, and then they act within it. They do not waste energy wishing things were different. They focus on what they can do next, because the next action is always within your control. Each time something goes wrong, they respond differently, not with blame, not with excuses, but with ownership. They ask themselves, "What could I have done better? What can I improve? What will I do differently next time?" These questions create growth, because they turn every situation into a lesson, every mistake into an opportunity, every failure into feedback. This is how progress is made, not by avoiding mistakes, but by learning from them. A strong person does not fear failure, they use it, because they know that every failure contains information. Information that can be used to improve, to adjust, to become better. And over time, this mindset compounds. It creates resilience, it creates adaptability, it creates strength, because now nothing is wasted. Every experience becomes useful, every challenge becomes valuable. Each morning, when you remind yourself to take full responsibility, something shifts. You stop waiting for change, you start creating it, you stop blaming, you start acting, and that action creates momentum, because now your progress is no longer dependent on external factors. It is dependent on you, your effort, your discipline, your decisions, and that gives you power, real power, the power to change your situation, to improve your life. To build something better. A strong person understands this deeply. They do not look for shortcuts, they do not look for excuses, they look for action, they look for improvement. They look for responsibility because they know that is where real change begins. 7. Consistency changes everything. There is a reason most people never become who they want to be. It is not because they lack intelligence, it is not because they lack opportunity, it is because they lack consistency. They start strong, full of motivation, full of intention, full of energy, but over time that energy fades. Distractions appear, life becomes busy, and slowly they stop, not all at once, but gradually. They skip one day, then another, until what once felt important becomes distant, and eventually it disappears. This is how progress is lost. Not through failure, but through inconsistency. The Stoics understood something most people overlook. Small actions repeated daily create powerful results. Not instantly, not dramatically, but inevitably. The Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius reminded himself daily to stay aligned with his principles, not occasionally, not when it was easy, but every day, because he understood that repetition creates identity, and identity shapes behavior. A strong person does not rely on bursts of effort. They rely on steady action, daily discipline, repeated focus, because they know that progress is built quietly, in the actions no one sees, in the moments no one applauds, in the decisions that feel small, but are not. Each time you act, even in a small way, you move forward. Each time you repeat that action, you reinforce it. And over time, those repetitions compound, they create habits, and habits shape your life. This is the power of consistency. It removes the need for constant motivation. It reduces resistance. It creates momentum. And momentum makes action easier. A mentally strong person understands this deeply. They do not chase intensity. They build consistency. Because intensity fades, but consistency remains. Each morning, when you remind yourself to stay consistent, something changes. You stop focusing on results and start focusing on effort. You stop looking for quick progress and start building steady improvement. And that shift creates patience, because now you understand that change takes time. But time rewards consistency. A strong person does not rush the process. They trust it. They show up daily, even when it feels slow, even when results are not visible, because they know that something is happening beneath the surface. Habits are forming, discipline is strengthening, identity is shifting, and eventually those internal changes become external results. This is how transformation happens, quietly, gradually, consistently, because consistency is what turns potential into reality. Most people spend their lives trying to fix their problems, without realizing where those problems begin, in the mind, in the way they think, in the way they interpret reality. The Stoics understood this deeply. They knew that if you change your thinking, you change your experience. And if you change your experience, you change your life. These lessons are not complicated, but they are demanding. They require awareness, discipline, consistency, and action. Because knowledge alone does nothing. It is what you apply that creates change. If you made it this far, it means something in you is ready. Ready to improve, ready to grow, ready to rebuild your mind. But what matters now is action. Take one lesson from this video and apply it today, not tomorrow, not later, now. Because change does not begin with intention, it begins with action. If this video helped you think differently, if it gave you clarity, if it pushed you to take control, subscribe to the channel. Because this is where you build a disciplined mind, a focused mind, a stronger version of yourself. And when you rebuild your mind, you rebuild your life. Everything you want begins there.